Today I'm going to show you how I make these croustades, little super crisp tart shells that you can fill with pretty much anything you like. You see people doing versions of these on tasting menus or as canapés quite a lot because they're delicious, they've got this really satisfying crisp texture, and they can be picked up and eaten in one bite, so they're perfect for early in a menu or at an event. They're incredibly versatile too. You can fill these with small amounts of intensely flavoured mixtures, so there's tons of scope to be creative with both flavour and texture. Lastly, from a chef's perspective, these work really well in terms of their preparation and workflow too. You can make the croustade shells and fry them earlier in the day, and then just finish them at the last minute for serving. I make my croustades that I'll show you entirely plant-based, which require just a little bit of adapting from traditional recipes. So I'll explain how I've done that while keeping the quality exactly the same, and show you the process for making and cooking these. The unique thing about our little croustade tart shells is that they are fried and not baked. So I make these by dipping a hot iron into the batter mixture to form the tart shape and then frying them. These irons come in a variety of shapes and sizes, so you can choose to make different types of tarts very easily. Let's start off with making the batter, which is very simple to do. Traditionally, these would use an egg yolk in the mixture, but that's easily replaced in my recipe, and I did side by sides, and honestly, you can't tell the difference. I might make a video at some point on the theory and principles you can use to adapt recipes to plant-based in the future, so if that sounds interesting, let me know in the comments. So for my money, I think this is something that's worth making plant-based anyway, and that way you can serve it to everyone. I'll list all the ingredients down in the video description, and in the blender I'm going to combine some plain flour, some Trisol, which is a starch powder that helps to give you a really super crisp texture, but you can just use a little more flour if you don't have access to this. A little salt. I also make these jet black by using a little activated charcoal in the mixture, but that is an optional extra and you don't have to use it. A little sugar, a little bit of potato starch, and a tiny bit of Easy Whip, which is a product that helps to emulsify the mixture and make sure that the finished tarts stay super crisp. Then we'll add our wet ingredients. So I'm adding some beer. I'm using a really nice beer, Sonoma from Track Brewery. Then we add some water, a little bit of soy milk, and lastly a touch of olive oil. Then we blend this mixture to get it smooth and well incorporated. And then I'll pass this mixture through a fine sieve before chilling it for at least an hour. Now we have our batter and we're ready to cook our croustades. First off, we need to heat up the Croustade Irons. I'm using these little boat-shaped irons which work perfectly for the small course that I serve in my croustades, but like I say, you can get all sorts of different sizes and shapes. I also made myself a little simple stand with some clamps to hold my Croustade irons. And of course, you don't need this, but I work on my own in the kitchen, and this just makes it a little bit easier for me not to have to constantly stand over the croustades. So our irons are heated up in oil at 160 Celsius, and then I dip these into the prepared batter for 5 seconds. Then we need to let these air dry briefly. And this step's more important than it seems. If you fry the croustades immediately, they'll bubble up an awful lot, whereas if you let them dry just a little bit, you'll get much smoother, neater tart shells. Then I'm going to fry my tart shells for 3 minutes. And here's where my clamps come in really handy, because this lets me do a few of these at a time and means I don't have to stand there the whole time holding them. After that 3 minutes, I delicately remove the shells from the irons and we let them fry in that oil for another 30 seconds or so. Then finally they come out of the oil and I'll sit them on a cooling rack just to allow any little bits of excess oil to drip away. And once these are made, you can keep them in an airtight container, and it is best to serve them within a few hours, but they'll actually stay crisp quite a while longer than that. This is the version that I currently have on my menu, and maybe I'll talk about the fillings and the rest of this dish in another video, but for today I thought it'd be a good idea to focus in on the croustades themselves and that technique. I think they look beautiful like this, and it's exactly the feel and the look that I wanted to fit in with the rest of my menu. I have done other versions of these in the past. I had one with tofu confit in seaweed oil, along with a few other ingredients, and finished with these little crisp butterflies. Those were made with Croustade irons made by a local foundry, which is cool, but unfortunately they didn't quite make for as neater tart shells as I really wanted. If you found this interesting, then maybe have a look at some of the other videos I've got on here, techniques that I'm using in the kitchen, and some of the dishes off my tasting menu. Thanks for watching, and I'll see you soon.